This is the Para Cave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, and co-sponsors Beau Cook from Loan Market, Scott from Brightside Detailing and Ceramics, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, the official clothing partner of the Para Cave Podcast, and the official media partner of the Para Cave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
Welcome to another episode of the Para Cave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Para Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome to another cracking episode of the Para Cave Podcast. And before I go any further, how good is that new intro music? Do you like it? Thank you, a huge thank you to Jamie Galea from the band Rough Diamond, which you can find on Facebook for gig locations for that pumping music, and also the outro music as well. Don't they both sound great? What are your thoughts? I threw that one out last week with the Brad Takarangi episode, the 150th. So a little bit of new music and intro and outro. So what do you think of that? I reckon it's great. Well, to this week's chat, and it is with someone who you might know. He has a very familiar voice, as you will find him on Fox League's rugby league coverage on the sideline, and is a host of the great interview style show on Fox League. It's called Face to Face. He is a massive rugby league fan, and that is Mr. Jake Duke. Now, during the chat with Jake, we chat about how rugby league came into his life, how he got into journalism, and to where we can find him now at Fox League, playing rugby league as well himself. Himself being a proud Indigenous man, and also there is a little bit of talk about season 2023, but there's much more as well in that. Now, this was recorded a few weeks ago before Easter via a Zoom video chat, so this will also be released next week via the Para Cave Podcast YouTube channel, which you will find as well. So search for that one and please subscribe to that one. You will find there now, there is episode 150 with Brad Takarangi, broken up into two parts, and it is live now. So subscribe to that, the Para Cave Podcast on YouTube as well. Now, of course, this wouldn't at all be possible without the help of the sponsors. Major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Beau Cook from Loan Market, Scott from Brightside Detailing and Ceramics, Mr. Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Teamwear, the official apparel sponsor of the Para Cave Podcast, and also the Parramatta Times, the official media partner of the Para Cave Podcast. More details about the sponsors and the Para Cave Podcast merchandise, which you can purchase now, but more details after the chat with Jake. So stay tuned for that info. And as you are well aware, enough of me talking by now. You don't want to hear me. You want to hear the chat with Jake. So, as Hindy says,
get a beer, coffee, whatever you want.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy, and let's get straight into it.
Hey, it's Jake Duke from Fox League here. Massive rugby league fan. As you know, I do my work on Fox League, on Face to Face. You'll hear me on the sideline, and I'm just about to have a chat to Troy on the Para Cave Podcast, and that's what you're listening to right now.
And as you heard from his intro, my guest today on the Para Cave podcast is on Fox League, has his own show, the face-to-face interviews with various players and people connected to rugby league, which is a great show to watch. He's also on the sidelines as well of games, on the game day coverage as well. First popped up on Channel 9, that's where I first know him from, and the footy show there. But also has his own podcast as well, Refuse to Lose podcast as well. So welcome to the Para Cave podcast, Jake Duke.
Thanks for having me, Troy. Pleasure to be on, mate. Yeah, you mentioned Channel 9, that feels like a long time ago, the footy show, and then, the podcast. And we haven't had the chance to do as many podcasts as we would have liked over the last 6 months because we're doing face-to-face on Fox, and we've kind of maybe a little bit turned the podcast into the show. So, but it was a good lesson in learning how to interview and how to kind of have those long form chats, which has kind of led me to the face-to-face stuff. So yeah, everything you do everything for a reason, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, we'll go back to the start. How did your love of rugby league come about growing up?
Oh, mate, I was born and raised in the rugby league. So my uncle played State of Origin, Phil Duke.
Oh, yeah.
So he played on the wing for New South Wales in 1982. A famous moment when Phil Sigsworth threw the ball to him, went over his head. Wally Lewis dived on and scored. I think everyone knows that moment. But, you know, my dad, he was my dad's brother, and you know, they played football for the Moree Boomerangs for years. Uncle Phil was actually picked straight out of Moree to play for New South Wales back in the day when guys were picked straight out of the country to play Origin. And so, you know, my dad just grew up playing it, and then he played all over, you know, New South Wales and Moree and Wollumbar, and he came to Sydney for a little bit and all this stuff. So he had a bit of talent, but never kind of pursued it. My uncle played, and then so we were just kind of bought into it when the second we were old enough, we were playing footy. We grew up on the Gold Coast, so I played for the mighty Burleigh Bears my whole life. Yeah. Yes. And then I went to Palm Beach Currumbin, which is a big rugby league school on the Gold Coast. Yes, a lot of rugby league alumni from there. So I've just been around rugby league my whole life. Played it since I was old enough. Watched it since I was old enough to understand it. And yeah, it's just been a love affair. It is my biggest interest in life. It's amazing that someone pays me to do it for a living, to be honest. Because if I wasn't doing my job, I'd still be sitting there watching it. So I think things kind of become like second nature, and you start doing for a job, and you I guess it all becomes kind of you just get used to things. Yeah, take it for granted, I guess sometimes, and then but no, I'm very aware, and I always remind myself of, if I could have seen my life, you know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and said, this is what I'm doing, you would not want me. I would not wanted to be in another place. So can't complain, mate.
Yeah, no, it's certainly got the dream job, that's for sure. Going back to your playing days, what sort of a player were you?
I was a back rower, mate.
Okay.
I was a back rower. Mate, I'm not so much anymore, but I was just always fit. We did so much training when we were kids. My mum never let us have a day off exercise. So we did surf lifesaving, we did swimming, we did footy, touch, everything. So I could I don't remember ever being physically gassed on a field. Like I had an aerobic capability. I think it came from swimming, honestly.
Okay.
And I hated swimming. I hated every minute of swimming, but it's just so good for your breathing and your ability to, you know, just keep going and going and going. So I was just a back rower, mate, no frills. Could run a good line and just tackled my heart out all game. That was pretty much summed it up, mate. Just hit a line and tackle. That was I do think sometimes in the modern game of NRL who I'd compare myself to. I don't know. I wouldn't want to insult anyone by comparing themselves to me. But yeah, just a back rower, kind of hit a line and make his tackles.
Did you play against anyone of note?
Oh, yeah, mate, I grew up James Roberts, the Jet, still is one of me great mates. We grew up playing against each other for years. Jerome Hughes was a year below me, but he used to play up against us because he was that good. Trying to think who else went on to kind of kick on and play in my age group. Jai Arrow played with my brother. He was a couple of years younger below me. He was Burley Bears. Ryan James, a couple of those boys, Titans boys, were a couple of years older. Cody Walker, they all went to school around the same time I did, a couple of years older. I'm trying to think. Junior Polo's the same age as me. I think we came across each other at some point.
Okay.
He grew up in New South Wales, but playing different comps and tournaments and stuff. But it's funny. Like I played with a lot of good guys my age group, and it's amazing how many of them kind of don't kick on and make it when they look like they're the superstars, you know. And then some guys that nobody really picked as the kind of guys that, and then they went on and
that's it.
Kicked on. Like Luke Garner was in my brother's year. He was a couple of years below me. Kane LG was a year below me. He played a couple of seasons there with the Titans. So, yeah, big rugby league school. A lot of guys kicking around. But, the Jet, when we were kids, he was the most naturally talented footballer I've ever seen. Just speed, skill, strength. He had a great career. He played close to 200 games, but I still sit and think, you know, and he would probably think just didn't even reach his potential on just how good how naturally talented he was.
So do these guys, when you've come across interviewing them, do they sort of remind you of the good old days?
We've. It's funny you mentioned that. When I first moved to Sydney, I live on the Northern Beaches, and I kind of moved in with a mate that I knew from the Gold Coast who was playing Manly 20s. And so he knew the Turbo boys well, and this is before they were obviously first graders. And we all played Oztag together. And we all talk about the golden days of our Oztag team, the Wolfpack. We were unbeatable because I think in our team at one point we had Tommy Turbo, Jake, Guffo was having a run with us, Liam Knight was having a run with us. Who else? Matty Cavalu came down and had a few runs. The Jet played a few games. Cameron Cullen, who used to play for the Titans.
Squad.
Yeah, we had a fair squad, and it was just me and then a couple of other mates. So we were kind of obviously the best players in the team, no doubt. But yes, it was. We all talk. It's funny how you kind of known guys your whole life, and then they kick on to be, these stars in the NRL, and then I've kind of worked my way into my position. And it's funny, It's funny how things work out.
So, do you have a NRL team growing up, or are you allowed to disclose that?
No, I chopped and changed a little bit. People always ask me this question. Ask me this question, and I always say, these days I go for whoever makes my job easier.
Fair enough.
But no, look, I've got teams I've got certain soft spots for. I was a Panthers fan first. I loved Ryan Girdler.
Oh, yeah.
He was my favourite player when I was a kid, and then that Penrith side that went on to win the 03 comp, Reece Wesser, Preston Campbell, Girds was in that team. That was my first team that I loved. And then I kind of followed Preston to the Titans, and I lived on the Gold Coast, so got a soft spot for the Titans. They've been tough to watch over the years, but I always root for them. And then South Sydney, my old man and family are mad South Sydney fans. So, these days I probably find myself barracking for South more than anyone. And I do a lot of work with South, and I have a good relationship with a couple of boys there. And there's obviously a strong Indigenous connection to South. So, but as I said, it can depend on year to year, week to week. It just depends. You work in the industry, you kind of get to know people personally. You go for teams you never thought you'd go for because you like guys that were in those teams. So it kind of takes away the sense of being a fan, but I don't mind that as well because then I'm not emotionally attached so much, so I can just enjoy the football for what it is. Which I think is a good way to watch it, because I think emotionally it's draining to rest so much emotion on your results of your team every week because, as we know, it can be such a roller coaster. So I like just being able to watch rugby league as a fan.
Yeah, tell me about it. The 37 years and still waiting for a
I
premiership.
didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to bring it up. But
that's fine. And even this year, the first 5 weeks, it's been a bit difficult, but they'll get over the hurdle on Easter Monday, I'm sure. You mentioned James Roberts there, a great Indigenous player, and you're a proud Indigenous man yourself. Who have been some of your favourite Indigenous players from over the years?
Yeah, look, there's been a lot of them. I mentioned Preston Campbell there. I loved the way Preston Campbell played. And I've had a lot to do with Preston off the field as well, and his story, and through the Titans programs that kind of I got my start working in Indigenous cadetship at the Titans because of what Preston had set up. So I've had a great relationship with Preston. I think he's the most fantastic role model, and just a great human being. So I love Preston. I loved watching him play. I love the way he played above his weight. I think if you could put his heart into some of these guys these days that weigh 110, 120 kilos, they'd be the greatest players we've ever seen because he just played above his weight. I've always obviously had a really close affinity with James and loved watching James. And in his prime, I think he was the best, the most unstoppable attacking force with the ball in his hands. Just with no, if he just had the ball in space, I don't think there was a point there where he was just kind of unbeatable. He just, for mine, was the greatest frustration in life was watching him play and not see him get much ball. I always thought he was, the modern centre doesn't really get much time and space anymore. They're more defenders or kind of guys that hit holes or run lines but I think the good old art of just giving your centre early ball and give him 10 metres of space between himself and the defensive line and 20 metres between him and the sideline and let him beat his own man. I think that's kind of been played out of the game by how great fullbacks are these days, and the fullbacks are the guys that just pick the option. But I think I would have loved to have seen James just, play 20 years ago in the days where they just gave Mark Gasnier a good ball or they gave, the Pearl good ball and just let him beat the bloke in front of him straight up. Because very rarely I saw James get the ball with a bit of space, and at least worst case scenario, he got the winger interested. He got the winger interested, and he could tip on outside to his outside man. So I loved watching the Jet play. There's so many, but if I was to pick probably two off the top of my head, and then probably Greg Inglis in his prime. There was no one quite like GI Latrell these days as well. I mean, you could go for days. There's so many great Indigenous players. Thurston. I remember playing against Cliffy Lyons here on the Northern Beaches in a touch game once, and he's in his 50s, Cliffy, maybe in his 60s, I think, and and he's still carving. Still got great hands. That timing, it never leaves. So man, there's been some great Indigenous players in the game.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's still running around. I think somewhere, Cliffy.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah.
But one of my favourite Indigenous players, obviously Parramatta, is the Zip man, Steve Ella. Great player. Didn't get to see him play live much, but certainly his highlights reel is amazing, and had the fortune of interviewing him last year, I think it was. So. Great player as well. But all those players, great players. Do you think James's best form was at the Broncos? Because he was at a few.
No,
clubs.
I think it was at the Titans.
Okay,
to be honest,
I
think he played his best. I think he played his best at the Titans, mainly because I think, as we were just saying, the Titans didn't have good years in those years, and I think they kind of just shuffled the ball out to him sometimes. So they just there was not much else doing. Yeah, and they just kind of gave him the ball, and he just did it on his own. I think when he got to the Broncos, a lot of it went through Milford, and they were obviously a bit better coach side and stuff. So he played some really good football at the Broncos, and I remember some great games. But I think his best individual solo form was kind of at the Titans. I remember there was a game against the Rabbitohs, and I think first half, I think he was playing. I think it was Bryson Goodwin marking him or something, and he just absolutely murdered him. It was like he just couldn't put a hand on him. Like it was those kind of games. But yeah, Titans, Broncos, yeah. That was his best form for sure.
Now, as I said in the intro, I first discovered yourself on Channel 9 on the Footy Show. How did your start? Like, did you want to be in sort of journalism growing up to get into that sort of a role?
Yeah, well, when I sat down and figured out kind of what I wanted to do with my life, I always thought I'd love to be involved in football somehow, and kind of marry two and two together. And it's like, oh, well, I'm not shy on a word. I can talk, and and I obviously lacked the talent to be a professional player. So I was like, well, what's the next best thing? Is like I always wanted to just be involved in sports broadcasting.
Okay.
So there was never really a second option for me. It was like, I got the grades to study law or whatever, but I was like, no, I want to do journalism, and I want to do that with a particular focus of trying to get into sport. So it was always the number one option for me. So I went to uni, and as I said, I kind of had a couple of cadetships that I kind of got involved with the Gold Coast Titans at the time. They were kind of doing programs for Indigenous kids because of the work that Preston Campbell did. And so I just kind of went in there. I got a cadetship with them where I'd go in there on my holidays and kind of work. And when I was in uni, working with their like kind of media team. And then I kind of got the opportunity to go into like All-Stars camp when I was like 18, 19, and they were doing a documentary. And when I think back to it, like the people that kind of took me along for the ride and, just kind of helped me and got me to do some interviews and got me to pointing the camera at me and practice piece the camera. Like, I think about it, I'm like, it's just like these people just kind of doing me a favor, I'm like helping this kid out, and I would have been so bad. And like I remember like interviewing Thurston or like Preston or like it would have been shocking. I'd hate to see those interviews now.
Are they around somewhere?
Who knows? But I was, shitting myself as well, and like those kind of opportunities, like. Things like that I had a lot of. People just kind of helped me out over the years in terms of Titans helped me out, and then that helped me apply for a cadetship down here in Sydney, which was supposed to be only a year cadetship where I'd do 4 months at SBS, 4 months at Fox Sports, and then 4 months at Channel 9.
Okay.
And I ended up getting that. It was a cadetship for a year, and I actually beat Hannah Hollis for it, actually.
Okay.
And so I got it, and then I worked at SBS, and that it wasn't really my bread and butter because they do a lot of football, soccer.
Yeah.
And then I went to Fox and was kind of there doing some work experience and kind of work, but it was rugby league season, but I was just kind of helping out where I could, and I was more of like an inconvenience to people than a help.
Okay.
And then I ended up after the 4 months going to Channel 9, and then I worked in the newsroom there because it wasn't footy season, and they kind of just said to me after the 4 months, hey, do you want to stay? And that's kind of how people kind of get in at 9, someone helps someone or someone knows someone, and they kind of get in if they can show they can do it, or they have an understanding of it, or they've got a passion for it. And then they kind of offer you a chance to stay at the time. So I got very lucky. I think I got lucky because they just switched from they used to do half an hour news bulletins, and it was just at the time where they'd gone to hour news bulletins. Yeah. And so they kind of needed more staff. So I just was, again, right place, right time. And that kind of landed me a job. So, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like I worked hard. And, but then I took opportunities. And I remember for that cadetship, like I flew down. I remember flying down from the Gold Coast to Sydney, getting dressed in a public toilet at Artarmon that I pass all the time now and still think about it. Get dressed in a suit, go in, do the interview. Then you get this cadetship that only one person got that kind of changed my whole life. Yeah. So it's weird how I got lucky in ways, but also worked for a lot, and just and then I kind of landed at 9, and I was there for eight years, I think, and then got the call to come to Fox start of 2021. So this is my third year at Fox now. But it's funny because I used to work there for
Yeah.
4 months, and then some of the people a lot of the people actually that were there 7 or 8 years ago are still there now. And
Okay.
it's funny, my producer on Face to Face, a guy named Ben Churchill, he and I were work experience kids together
Oh wow. Yeah.
when we were 18, 19 at Fox, just kind of, doing the tweets or whatever, or kind of looking for vision.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, I come back and we get this show together where it's, we basically do it ourselves between us, like kind of organising it and organising the talent and ringing guys. And then obviously we have camera crews and stuff shoot it, but like it's mainly it's a production between myself and him, really. So it's funny how those things work out. Like it's been a weird kind of circle, but then at the same time, it's a small industry, so people you'll find have worked at Nine, they've worked at Fox, they've worked at Nine, they've worked at Fox. Like it's a bit like that.
What was your first day like on the Sunday Footy Show doing the injury reports?
Oh, God, I'm trying to remember my first
In
day.
front of those the legends that are on there, were you nervous?
Yeah, I would have been, absolutely. Yeah. I remember I would have been. Again, like the years before that, I think, like, obviously a lot of people did that job. Aaron did that job. Then it went to Danica, and then I don't know, Billy Baxter was doing it for a bit. Tim Gilbert was doing it for a bit. Everyone had kind of done the news update job. And at the time, Aaron was hosting, and then it was kind of like a thought process is when Danica had kind of moved on, it was like, someone asked Aaron, is there any more girls in the newsroom that would do it? And then Aaron goes, well, it doesn't have to be a girl. Why not Jake? Like, because it just kind of been the girls kind of passing it on to one another. And then, and I remember Aaron, I kind of asked about, why can't I do it? And they're like, oh yeah, sweet. Let's give Jake a go. I can't even remember who asked me to do it or whatever, but yeah. And then it was, point, I hadn't had much to do with kind of Freddie or Joey or any of the kind of guys that are on the panel. I worked in the newsroom and I might have interviewed them from time to time over the years, but it was good that they were just so welcoming of me. And from that moment, like Freddie just decided that he'd take the piss out of me and make fun of my name and all this stuff. And then it kind of just caught on, but it was, they could have easily just kind of whatever, who's this kid, we've seen another million of them come in and kind of do it and move on or whatever. So yeah, it was great that they took a shining to me, I guess, and it kind of caught on, and people kind of started to, I guess, notice who I was or whatever, and that probably led to kind of, Steve Crawley is my boss at Fox calling me now, and that was obviously, that had a big part to do with Yvonne Sampson as well, who I worked with at Channel 9, who was now at Fox, who kind of, I think, pushed a lot for me to get the Fox gig and stuff. So, it's just, the thing is all this, as I said, people you meet along the way who kind of just help you out, and you get lucky, and you work hard and you get lucky, I think.
Yeah, you sure it wasn't getting the call to Fox from your dancing in the gold shorts at Channel 9 on the TV that day, was it?
Oh, yeah, God, you had to bring that up, didn't you? So I'm just turning the light on. It's a bit dark in here. There you go. Look.
But that was for charity, wasn't it?
It was for charity, yes. So I don't regret it because it was for charity. Look, at the time, I can't watch it back. It's so cringe. In the gold pipe morph suit and the gold pants and the fairy wings on. But no, it was for a good cause. As I said, the proud Indigenous man, and we're raising money for a charity called NASCA, National Aboriginal Sporting Chance Academy. It's all about helping Indigenous kids in remote communities. And it started out as just, I was going on this on like a mission away to kind of work in community with these kids out in Alice Springs for a week. It was just something I wanted to do, and they asked, we try and get our volunteers who are coming out to fundraise. A lot of our money comes through fundraising, and then I just decided, it's a fun way to do this, and it started out as like a little, or maybe if I get people to donate, I'll do a task every time I hit a number,
Yeah, yeah.
And then it kind of caught on. And then someone at Channel 9 said, I saw one of your things was to do an interpretive dance. And no, I remember someone at a chat at the Today Show rang me and said, hey, we've seen what you're doing, love it. Would you like to do one of the tasks on the show? And I was like, oh, yeah, what about... One of them was to get shaved Queenslander in my back of my head or something, because I actually am a New South Wales supporter because I was born in Moree, which is in New South Wales, and New South Wales family and stuff.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
even though I did grow up on the Gold Coast,
Yeah.
but one of them was to get like Queenslander shaved in the back of my head. And I said, oh, yeah, maybe I can get the Queenslander shaved in the back of my head. And they were like, oh, we were thinking more the interpretive dance. And I was like,
Oh, no.
I'm like, I can't really say no, because like, it was the whole point of it was raising money and stuff. And then it just, again, it took on about 8 forms during the day of, this is how we'll do it, this is how we'll do it, this is how we'll do it. And at the end of the day, I was like, they were just like, how about we just dress you up and put the music on and you dance? And I was like, whatever.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so I just
get it done. And
yeah, I did it and it was awful. It's funny. I did like a cartwheel at the start, and then like my shoulder like rolled as I was doing it, and
no.
you get the click, if you like shoulder, and I went and like I was like, imagine if as embarrassing as it was, imagine if I buckled over and dislocated my shoulder on the Today Show doing that dance. So I was like, it could have been worse. So
well, that's it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think another thing you did for charity too was it. You took on Paul Gallen in the boxing ring as well.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Same thing. Yeah, we were raising money, and again, like we were just setting new jobs because I kept getting like more money and keep hitting targets. And people were like, "What are you going to do next?" And so we were at work, and then Danny Weidler, who I was working with at the time, said, "Why don't you go box Gal?" And then everyone laughed, and it was like, that's funny." And then he got on the phone, rang Gal, and said, yeah, the young fella, he's raising money. Can he come down and have a go with you? And then he got off the phone 5 minutes later. He goes, yeah, it's set up with Gal. Go down there tomorrow. I'm like, you're taking the piss, right? And he's like, no, it's all happening. And I was like, I remember getting there and Gal sparring with some bloke and they're into each other. And me and my cameraman just looks at me and goes, is he going to go that hard with you? And I'm like, fuck, I hope not.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, Gal said to me before, like, he'd done 12 rounds and then he goes, so how hard are we going here? And I go, oh, look, don't kill me. But,
yeah.
A lot of people have paid to watch me get punched in the face here. So, put a few on me. And he got me a few times in the face with a few good jabs. But the one that hurt the most is when he cracked me in the ribs. He got me a real good shot in the ribs. And I was like, that was the worst one. I've never really caught one that hard in the ribs before. And there were times where I was like, he was obviously fighting with his hands down and just kind of chipping and that. But then I was like, there's times here where I could
have a
try.
crack.
He's not protecting himself. I could throw one and try and get him in the face. But for the sake of me making me look like a decent boxer, I think I just would have pissed him off, and then he would have just kind of maybe roughed me up a little bit more. And he was doing me a favour, so I thought, I'm here to take punches, not give them out.
So you didn't get any on him at all? Just a few light ones, maybe?
No, nothing clean. No.
Okay. Yeah, fair
but
enough.
I'm going to stand by. I'm going to stand by the fact that I pulled some of my punches. That's what
that's it. Well, and you survived, and you've fought Paul Gallen in the ring. So not many people have done that and survived. So it's credit to you. Well, yeah, you moved to Fox Sports in 2021. Was it? Yep. And so since then, you've done the sidelines, and as we said, you got your face-to-face interview show. What's the best part about doing your face-to-face interview show? What's the most thing that you enjoy out of it?
I enjoy just getting to know these players outside of just the usual go to games, interview them. You just get to spend 2 hours, 3 hours sitting with someone, just having a chat. You kind of get to know them, and they get to see you, and they get to know you as a bit more of just as a person, as opposed to just being, again, someone they see, interview them. And I think it just forms a bit of a bond that's really important in our job, in my job, for players to kind of see you as and know what you're about. Because, there's so much media and they do so many interviews and, they can be under such scrutiny and they're talked about so much. So to have someone that they feel like they know and will kind of can have a chat to and I guess be comfortable opening up to, that's the biggest thing for me. That's the thing I enjoy most about it, is that just kind of getting to know these guys and I think sharing their stories as well. I think it's lost on people. Footballers are role models, whether they like it or not. And a lot of these guys are terrific role models. They really are. Like, I think rugby league can cop a bad rap at times for obviously, isolated incidents. But a lot of these guys have fantastic stories. It's a working class game. A lot of people come from working class backgrounds, and they've been through hardships, trauma. They've battled all of that, and the discipline and hard work it takes to become a footballer. That these are I think it gets lost on people. It gets lost on people how hard it is. It's not. These guys are the 1% of the 1%, right? And a lot of them have come from nothing, and they've had every disadvantage go against them, and they've still made it. Like, we talk about someone like James Roberts, who I, know really well, and he was the reason I started my podcast in the first place, because I knew him as a bloke from we were 10 years old, and I used to get really frustrated by the way people would talk about him and the media coverage around him, because he might have had a few off-field incidents where he had too much to drink, or he got into a scuffle or whatnot. And I used to annoy me that if you knew James Roberts' story, a scuffle or too much to drink is barely it's a blip on the radar, right? Yeah. And he would be painted so differently than the guy I knew. So that's what used to kind of frustrate me, and that's where I got the kind of passion to tell these guys stories, because not only to just change people's perception of James, but also I think a lot of kids especially involved in rugby league who look up to rugby league players come from similar backgrounds to James, especially Indigenous kids, where, they might not have had the most amount of support, or they might not have been had the most amount of opportunity in life. And even I'm talking, if you go right down the end of the scale, like James, they've been downright, abused and mistreated. That's where that kind of passion that to tell these guys' story came from. And that's what the podcast was born out of. And then the podcast, as I said, kind of became face-to-face a little bit when we were faced with last year, really, where Benji kind of got the Tigers job. And in the space of a week, my boss rang me and said, "Hey, we've got a 7:30 time slot where Benji's show used to be. I want you to kind of fill it." And that was it, really. It was like, well, what are we going to do? And that's when I spoke to Ben Churchill, was the guy who I did work experience with, and he was the producer on Benji's show, so he automatically kind of assumed the role. Yeah. And we were like, what are we going to do? And I said, well, why don't we kind of turn my podcast into a TV show? Let's do that. Let's ring guys. Let's go out. Let's get to know them. Let's I've got the advantage of kind of being similar age to a lot of these guys. Yeah. Like, let's do a show where it's like young men talking to young men, and we get to know them, right? And that was the plan, and it kind of came together quickly, and we've mapped it up out as we've gone, and we've gone, oh, we like that, we didn't like that, let's do this, let's do that. And I had to call in a lot of favors at the start, because you're doing this new show, no one knows what it is, so I had to ring guys that I'd maybe had on my podcast before, or just guys I have a relationship with, said, hey, look, we're doing this show, can you come on and do it? And thankfully a lot of them said yes and helped out, and it helped the show kind of get 10 solid episodes at the end of last year. And then Fox were like, oh, we loved it, we want to bring it back this year. And now, thankfully, people have seen it, and it's got a bit of a reputation. People know what it's about. So now, guys, if you ring and say, hey, this is what we want to do, they're kind of like, if they say yes, they know what they're in for. They know they're coming to talk about their lives. And, so it kind of helps itself. But to get it off the ground was probably the hardest thing. But yeah, look, I've gone off track. But
That's all good.
to answer your question, yeah, I think the opportunity to tell stories, and not just stories about footballers, but people and real issues, real backgrounds, just real stories about where people come from and that reflect other people, other people's journeys. Like as I said, I'm a proud Indigenous man, and like I've tried to marry up my job and what I guess little profile I have to, if I can marry that up and tell great Indigenous stories when I've had the chance, I've always tried to mesh them together because I think that's really important, and I think a lot of Indigenous people don't have that maybe mainstream media access that I've had. So that's been a big passion. It's just telling those stories where I can, things that I'm passionate about, but then also just telling other stories and learning about other people, other cultures, Māori boys, Pacific Islanders. As I said, rugby league's a working class, diverse background, so
definitely.
That's what's so great about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, the Liam Knight interview, that was pretty interesting. And as you said, they open up about their story, and his story was really interesting. And obviously, myself being a Para fan, Junior Paolo's interview as well, just getting to know him a little bit better. And as you said, it's not always about football, it's about off-field as well, and what they get up to on days off and stuff like that. And
Juniors was. I love Juniors because it gave me an insight into this bloke, right? Like I haven't spent much time in Western Sydney. I go there for games and things like that. But I grew up on the Gold Coast and then moved to the Northern Beaches, and like just to kind of go out with him and like take me to just this field down the road, and every afternoon guys turn up just to play games and touch. It's not organised. It's not anything. It's just like community thing. It's been happening for 20 years. His old man used to play. That's where he grew up playing and learned how to offload and pass and like things like that. I don't think there isn't, for the most part. Like I think we have a really unique opportunity this show that there is no other show that has a half an hour to talk purely to a rugby league player about their life and has the ability to kind of go and shoot it with them anywhere. So it's always so great when guys like Junior are so forthright, and he was like, yep, come to my house. Yeah, sweet. Come meet my family. I'll take you down the road here and let's go play this touch game. I think, as I said, the show maybe is developing a bit of a reputation now. So guys know when they're coming on, like it's like, oh yeah, no, I'll show him this. I'll take him here. And that's what fans want to see. They want to see these guys' lives and what they do and where they're from. And so it's really great. And mate, we've had a lot of support and a lot of guys helping out. And hopefully it can continue because I love it. It's hard work, and you want to do it justice. And you want to be across these guys' lives enough, but you want to also, you want to be well researched, but also taken in a different direction if it goes in a different direction. So they're not as easy as they probably come across in that half an hour. That we shoot probably an hour and a half worth of stuff and then kind of cut down and make it work. So it's more complicated than it looks, but I think it comes out really well. And Ben Churchill is my producer; he does an amazing job. So,
I mean, it's a shame it's only half an hour. The show. I mean, you sort of get into it, and then it finishes. You want more, but I mean, even this week's episode with Ronaldo Mulatalo, I mean, that was really interesting. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got someone like Brendan Smith who opens up and says he has about 7 or 8 coffees a day, and when he said that, I couldn't believe it. 8 coffees a day, wow.
Yeah, no, you probably should dial back on that old cheese. But no, that's the thing. We try and keep it light as well. We try and have a bit of fun, and then we try and talk serious and talk life. And I think it's a good mix. And it also depends on the person, and we kind of tailor it around people, who it is and stuff. And it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag this year in terms of blending. Like we've kind of come out with a formula that Yvonne Sampson's going to take over a little bit, and because it is a lot, as I said, for one person to do when you're managing in footy and games and travel and all that stuff. So Bonnie's kind of going to do legends of the game and
Okay.
retired guys and maybe coaches a little bit, and I'm going to do the current guys, the younger guys, and then we'll get some of the ladies on as well when the NRLW starts. So it'll just be a bit more of a mix up this year than it was last year.
Oh, that'll be interesting to see. Now, to your game day role, what's the obviously you got a box seat there on the sideline watching games, but when it comes to interviews, has there ever been any like hard interviews, like you thought, oh geez, what's going on there, or sort of like inconvenient interviews sort of thing?
Yeah, old Wayne's left me high and dry a few times with a few, one-word answers and, kind of mumbles a little bit and you can't hear what he's saying. And, it's a loud room and he just mumbles and he's 2 meters away from you in COVID. And, there's been some awkward ones. Desi's done the same thing to me a couple of times. Just, and they talk and then they just stop. And then you're like, oh, well, okay. Like, it's just... the pre-game interviews they can be a little bit of a minefield because everyone's kind of focused in games and they'd be the worst of them. I think Wayne and Des have kind of given me a few curveballs, but that's all right. It's part of the game, mate. I think they almost do it as like an initiation. They see some young kid there standing with the mic and they think, oh, all right, I'm gonna give him a little touch up on the way through. But
that's
character building.
Oh yeah, definitely, especially from those two. And at the end of last year, you had the experience with Fox Sports to go over to the World Cup and cover that for them. What was that experience like?
That was unreal. It was so much fun, mate. Probably too much fun in terms of, eating too much and drinking too much and working as well. And like we talk about, developing relationships with these guys. Those tours are the best. The Kangaroo Tour, it's the best of the best players, but also the guys that are the best of the best in terms of, they're so media savvy and they get the relationship, they get the game. So they're so cruisy with us when we're over there to the point where it's like, friendly and like, we end up on nights out and having beers and that together. It's just a really great kind of mix. And like Mal and the coaching staff have us for dinner. And those Kangaroo Tours are the best to be a part of. I did one in New Zealand a couple of years ago, and then to go to the UK was unreal. It was the first time I've been to the UK too. Okay. So it was, I've been to Europe, but I've never been to the UK. But first time to kind of get a look at English rugby league and go to some of those famous English grounds. And I remember I was with Vossi at top points, and like I've never seen a bloke so excited. Like like there's loving rugby league, and then there's Vossi levels of rugby league loving, and he's just next level. He's like, oh yeah, oh you saw this ground over here? That's where Ellery Hanley kicked a field goal in 1975. Like, you're just like, it's like, I don't know who. Mate, he's just like an encyclopedia. He's just a fountain of knowledge of rugby league. So it's pretty cool. And just, pinch yourself moments where you're kind of like, I'm driving between, I don't know, Leeds and Coventry with Vossi, just chatting footy in the middle of the night, going to cover games the next day, like going to cover the Kangaroos. We're going to Old Trafford we got in to shoot there beforehand, shoot a little feature at Old Trafford before the final. And we're told not to go into the dressing rooms, but we went into the dressing rooms anyway. And there's, there's Ronaldo's jersey hanging up and it was wild. Had the stadium to ourselves, and then to kind of go back there and watch the Kangaroos play, or to go watch it at Ellen Road and watch the Kangaroos play the Kiwis. It was so good. It was so good. Like I don't think it kind of dawns on you when you're there. You're just kind of working, and we were flat out because we were the only people for Fox there, so it was just me and my cameraman really. So, and it's a bit of an inconvenient time zone. So you sleep all night, and then you wake up to 50 emails from people back home who've worked all day. Like, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this?
yeah.
Can you do this? Yeah. And you're working for like Fox League and then Fox Sports News. And so it was hectic. So you don't, I know, when you're there, you kind of maybe don't appreciate it because you're like, oh, I've got to do this. I'm just going to do this, got to do this. It's work. But then when you come home and you think about all the great times and like, well, going to watch Liverpool play at Anfield and watch Man United play and we watch Man City play and just Manchester. We were in Manchester most of the time. It was just the best. Like we were, nights out and a bunch of all the journos were over there. Like Emma Lawrence, we're all together and we're just having beers and karaoke and it was unreal. It was I can't wait. 2025, it's in France and I'll be putting my hand up, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. When you say working, is there much of a like competition between the journos over there to get that scoop, get that story?
No, I think on tours like that, mate, everyone's kind of just, let's all just get our jobs done and kind of work together. I'm sure that it depends on the journos and the people, but the crew I was over there with, we all had a pretty great relationship. Everyone's kind of looking to do different things as well. Like, certain people are kind of trying to get together newsy stuff, whereas I'm kind of doing more feature stuff for Fox League.
Okay.
And 10 has different focuses to 9 and 7. Everyone just kind of works together. It's like, I need to do this. And the Kangaroos are great. Glenn Jackson is their media manager who works in the NRL. He's just kind of like, oh, yep, you need that, you need that, you need that. Like everyone kind of...
Okay, yeah.
No one tries to really kind of knife each other or anything like that. It's like, we're all here. We all want to have a good time. We all want to get our jobs done. Let's just all work in harmony and then we can all... No one looks bad and we all have a good time. I think it's those kind of mentality, which is good.
Makes it a bit easier
because we all get along. We're all friends and stuff like that. So like it's in my experience, that's the way it's been. It can be a bit more competitive with other big wigs and things like that, but
and probably
the rest of us
in like your sort of role and probably those ones that covered the tour. It's not really a sort of scoopy story tour thing, is it? It's
no, not really, because you're just one team, and if something happens with that one team, they will generally we all want the same thing. So they'll just put one guy up, and like we all kind of coordinate. We work together and say, all right, we're going to interview Jake Jaboyevich today, and we're going to do this interview with this guy today, but we're all going to hold him and put it out 2 days later. Like we're all kind of working together, so everyone's getting what they need without it being, anyone being screwed over kind of thing. That's the way we approach it.
What were your thoughts about the Australian numbers on the back of their jerseys not being 1 to 17? It was confusing, wasn't it?
I won't miss it. I don't think it's right. I think as long as I've watched rugby league, mate, I know it was different, 20, 30 years ago, but I think these days, I think if you're, Isaiah Yeo and you had to wear number 24 all tournament, and then that's your Kangaroo jersey, and everyone, your kids are ask, why are you number 24? And you've got to explain some bizarre concept to them about alphabetical order. I don't know. I just think, maybe guys would want, I debuted for Australia as my number 13 jersey.
Definitely, for sure.
That's just my opinion. I haven't met many people that thought it was a great idea.
I agree. I'm a traditionalist. I agree. 1 to 17, and as you said, those players that debuted for Australia, they'd want Nathan Cleary number 7 and Isaiah Yeo number 13, and they want those numbers in the frames rather than the...
Yeah, I'd agree. But I guess it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's it. Turning our attention to this season, we've seen an unbelievable start to the competition. I think the closest it's been in like 50 years or something like that. What are your thoughts on this year's competition? Like, do you think it's going to be the usual standouts at the end of the year going to be there, or do you think there's going to be some surprise packets?
I think there's going to be more surprises this year. Look, it is a long season. Like we're 5 rounds into 27. Like it will wear on the best of them, and you'd have to think the quality squads will rise. Mainly, more than anything, is that it's injuries, right? It's the toll that the season takes to win so many games when you're not going to have your best 17 on the paddock for probably 30% of those games, like 30, 40%. So, but no, I think there'll be more surprise packets. I think the competition is evened out. I think the introduction of the Dolphins has spread out some of the talent. I think the COVID has settled down. Everyone had the chance to have a solid, normal preseason at home. I think the fact that a lot of those high finishing teams last year had a lot of representation at that World Cup has kind of slowed their start to the year. You look at the teams that would have had all their players available and stuff have kind of started really strongly, or stronger than people might have expected them to. If they can maintain it, I don't know. I just think as well that the rule changes, there's been no real major changes this year. So the guys have just had time to get used to it. And the game's kind of been played the same way it was last year. So it's interesting. I hope, although I think if you look at the last couple of years, Penrith were just far and away better than everyone else. I think they've come back to the pack a little bit, which is good, which puts them probably on even keel with teams like South and the Roosters and things like that. Like, they're kind of always there. Yeah. There's no real standout. The Broncos look great at the moment, but, we all know that round 3, 4 and 5 are different to prelim finals and semi-finals and kind of pressure and big games and all that stuff. But, who knows? They might shock everyone. But I like some of the stories like the Warriors. I like the improvement in them. As I said, I've always got a soft spot for the Titans. I think they've been unlucky with injury to start the year with guys like Foran getting injured, Verrills getting injured, AJ Brimson getting injured. You take those 3 guys out of that team, they're going to have difficulties. I think they're the improved side. I like seeing a little bit of a shake-up, like Newcastle going with Manly on the weekend, Manly having time back. Like, there's so many unknowns. There's so many unknowns. Para have started not great, but a lot of injuries, and you'd think they'll have a decent run soon. So, I like the uncertainty around it all. You couldn't pick it. Everyone thought, these teams are a lock. I think coming into the season, most people would have thought 7 of the 8 were pretty safe from last year, and maybe Canberra were in a bit of danger, and you would have thought, Melbourne Roosters, Rabbits, Penrith, Para, Sharks, Cowboys. You'd think they were all locks, but I don't think that's the case. And you think the Cowboys are wobbling a little bit. Cronulla have had moments, but then not great moments. South, I think will they've got too much class. Penrith, you think will be their Para. There's those teams you can bank on. I think the Storm will still be there. I think they'll surprise people when they get going. But there's those kind of unknown quantities between fifth down to probably 13 that can kind of all push for that spot. The Dogs, there's a big improver, right? The Dogs have looked. They've had some moments this year where you thought, they could be in the top 8. They've been in pretty much every game they played in, bar the Manly game in round 1. And they've had a lot of injuries too. It's great. It's really good. I think it's the most exciting season we've had in a long time. And I think and then the Broncos, right? I think any of those teams could kind of come out of the pack and win it.
Yeah, you just look at the ladder as it stands right now, and I think 3/4 of the 8 that were there last year are in the bottom 8 now. So, it's been a fantastic start to the season, and no doubt it'll keep on rolling on. Well, a couple of quick fire questions, and then the set of 6 questions to wrap things up. Is there a favourite ground that you love going to and being on the sideline at?
Well, it's hard to go past Suncorp.
Yeah.
It's hard to go past Suncorp. Yeah, no, I love Suncorp. I think it's the best. It's the best stadium. It's mainly because it's just you're so close. There's always a good crowd in. It's in the middle of Brisbane, like so. There's a great atmosphere around it. Like Magic Round is fantastic. When they had the grand final up there a couple of years ago, there's such life around it. So after the game, before the game,
Yeah.
there's so many factors why I think Suncorp's the best rugby league ground in the world, and when it's full, there's nothing like it in rugby league. I think. I'm skipping it over other places in my head. Like if you're talking Australia, obviously like Old Trafford was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
But definitely rugby league grounds in Australia. But mate, also, I live on the Northern Beaches, and a beautiful Saturday or Sunday at Brookie, 2 p.m.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a great day too. Like if you're talking suburban grounds, Brookie or Leichhardt, like on a Saturday afternoon,
Yeah.
Close to 20,000 rammed in there. They're pretty great.
Well, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there. I think I'm a bit biased, but I think CommBank Stadium is probably the best rectangular ground in Australia, to be honest. But I mean, it's a
You can make a case for it.
mini
Make a
Suncorp,
case for it.
mini Suncorp.
Yeah.
Is there is there? I know you're a rugby league lover, but is there a ground that you just don't like getting at? Whether you've been like heckled, or have you been heckled at a ground or anything?
No, I don't really. No,
No.
hopefully it stays this way. But no, I don't get heckled too much. Mostly positive feedback
Yeah,
I've
okay,
found,
yeah.
hopefully so far. So
No, that's fair enough.
hopefully that can continue. I'm trying to think. Look, Canberra in the freezing cold
Oh
in
yeah, don't blame
June,
me there.
July.
Yeah,
It's not the ideal place you want to be. Like then I feel like every time I go to like Net Strata Jubilee in Cogra, it's always raining. It's
okay, yeah,
always raining every time I go there. I feel like every time I've never been up there on a sunny day. So I feel like I always get rained on there. Shark Park has similar tendencies. I feel like it rains on me in Shark Park all the
just
time.
look at last weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Got poured down on. No, more so than anything, just travel.
Yeah,
What takes longer to get to, what doesn't.
yeah,
And as opposed to I seem like I've had unlucky runs at places, but
yeah.
I'm non-fussed, mate. I'm pretty easy.
Nah, well, I mean, yeah, it's just speaking of Shark Park, that interview with Sean Johnson after the game, that was one of the best ever, I think.
He was unreal, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Mate, we were lucky. We just got him at the right time. He was so emotional. I reckon if you asked him what he said 10 minutes later, he wouldn't have been able to tell you. Like, he would just coming out of him,
Yeah.
They're the best ones.
Yeah, no, that's it. All right, wrap things up with a set of 6 questions. Is there a favourite sport outside of rugby league at all?
I love American sport,
Okay.
mainly because working in sport for so long, you kind of, as I said, when things happen and it affects your life and it becomes your job, you want something that you can just watch for purely enjoyment. And so working like all my 20s on weekends, I'd get Mondays and Tuesdays off, which would be great because I'd see Sunday NFL. The Sunday NFL is on Monday here, so I watch a lot of NFL, a lot of basketball. I think I flop between them. Like some years I'm more into the NFL than the NBA.
Yeah.
Some years I'm more into the NBA. I'm probably more into the NBA this year. I got to go on the back of the World Cup. We went to the States for a little bit with Danica Mason and her fiance and a couple of friends, and we went and saw the Knicks play at Madison Square Garden. We went and saw Golden State play Boston in San Francisco, and we saw the 49ers play. Like that was unreal. So yeah, I'm more of an American sport man. Outside of rugby league, but mate, I'll watch anything. Honestly, like there's Masters. The Masters on this week in the golf. I'll be watching the Masters, and I'm a sports fan.
Yeah.
I love sport.
Yeah. Well, then, is there a favourite sporting documentary or movie that you love?
The last Dance was really good.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the best sporting documentaries I've ever seen. And just, I mean, it's based around one of the greatest athletes of all time, right?
Yeah,
So it's hard to
definitely.
get it wrong. And like I was a child, in 1998, I was 5 years old. So like I didn't get to watch it firsthand,
Okay, yeah,
but
yeah.
to then kind of get to relive it and watch it and kind of understand it. And I knowing basketball, I know, kind of the shadow of Michael Jordan looms large over the whole sport forever. So to kind of get to an insight into it and to see all those behind the scene footage, I love The Last Dance. That'd be my favourite one.
Yeah, nah, classic. I mean, everyone I ask that question to, probably 95% of people say that one anyway. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it brings back such great memories. What's your specialty dish in the kitchen or on the barbecue?
Oh mate, I'm not that great a cook, to be honest. And I'm sitting here, my girlfriend will be home any moment soon, and she does the majority of the cooking.
Fair enough.
Look, I'm basic, mate. If I'm cooking, I'm cooking a spag bowl or something, like a pretty basic spaghetti bolognese. I could live off spaghetti bolognese. I reckon I could
Oh,
eat it if it wasn't so bad for you in terms of like just eating carbs and I'd eat it every night, mate. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and the camera adds 10 pounds, so I can't just sit and eat carbs all day. So yeah, but I'm just cooking a basic spag bowl.
yeah, nah, that sounds good enough to me. Did you make it to Italy on the World Cup tour at all?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
But I've been to Italy. I've been to
okay.
Italy, but
What's the
I
spaghetti
didn't
like
go
over
this
there?
time. Yeah, I was only there for a couple of days, and I
Yeah.
ate as much as I could. Mate, you know what? I still think that again, I'd like to go back and have more time there. I honestly think I'm a bit biased, but there's a joint here on the northern beaches that I've been going to since I moved here. It's in Coleroy. Matty Johns always talks about it as well. It's called
Okay.
Alimento's Pizza Cafe, and I reckon that's the best pasta I've ever had. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, nah, fair enough. If you're on a deserted island, which three work colleagues, either former or present, wouldn't you want to be stuck with?
Wouldn't want to.
Wouldn't want to be stuck with?
Wouldn't want to be stuck with. Oh God. Let's go. Who wouldn't I want to be stuck with? Um, I love Molly, Erin Molan, and but she won't be offended by me saying this, but she is she's crazy. She'd talk your ear off, and you want to get away from her because she's talking too much. Love Molly,
Yeah.
but I don't think I can live on a desert island with her. She talks too much. You want your peace and quiet. God. Who else? So I'm trying to think over the years who I've worked with and who I haven't worked with.
I think you might just be too likable, Jake, and there's probably too many people there that
No, look, mate. I get along with everyone. I'm splitting hairs here. I'm
yeah.
splitting hairs in terms of people I wouldn't want to be on a desert island with.
Nah, that's all right. If you can't think of anyone, that's all right.
I'll say Danica Mason. I couldn't live with Danica. No, actually, I did find that out. Actually, when we were on holidays together, we realised that we were very different people in terms of we're good friends, but she wants to walk everywhere and exercise and do this, and I want to get the subway, and
Yeah.
she would rather walk 20 blocks. And
Okay.
we differ greatly on things. So we on holidays found her boyfriend Todd he was between us a lot. He was the tiebreaker. So I'll say D Mace.
Okay.
I don't think we can live together. Erin and D Mace.
Okay.
I'd avoid living with them.
Nah, sweet. What's the best piece of advice you have been told or given throughout your career? What's one thing that stands out for you? Or what's a good piece of advice that you could give to somebody that's maybe an up and coming journalist as well?
Mate, two things stand out to me. Like I have young journos ask me to. They message me and stuff and say, "Oh, how do you get your job?" And I'm always kind of like, "Oh, just give me a call and I'll kind of talk you through it because it's just easier than typing a million words." But I always just say to them like that, and it's the same thing. It's no secret. It's like it's not. There's no guarantee, and you. It looks like a glamorous job, and there are elements that obviously that are glamorous, but then there's elements of it that aren't.
Yep.
That you got to sacrifice. I've worked every weekend of my 20s. When all my mates have had birthdays and weddings and things, I've missed countless ones because sorry, it's footy season. I'm here. I'm there. I spend more time at Sydney Airport than anyone. So.
Yeah.
It's just I when I was coming up, I spent a lot of time doing the overnight shifts, doing the Today Show shift. I'm getting up at midnight. So like it's not all, and with no guarantee that I'd end up where I am now.
Yeah.
So like it was just what I wanted to do. I saw that there was a path there possibly, and I just worked and worked and worked. So that's what it is. It's just kind of putting your head down if you think you've got it or you think you've got some kind of ability, but no one's going to hand it to you. You get lucky, as I said, but I got lucky because I put myself in the right position and worked hard and was always nice to people and things like that. So it's no great secret. Anyone tells you that. But it's true, especially in like a job like mine that, there's not that many jobs, especially for guys that didn't play the game, to kind of crack into that industry. So I know I'm very lucky, but I got through hard work. And I think the other best piece of advice I ever got was Preston Campbell. He said, he didn't say it to me, he said it to my mum actually. And I remember at one point I was kind of working in media and I felt a little bit disillusioned at times where it would differ from my values and what I wanted to do. And I think we all know that, media can have a negative side and things like that. And I remember being kind of disillusioned with it at times. I can't remember what was the circumstances. And I was telling my mum about it, and then she ran into Preston at the airport or something, and he said, "How's Jake going?" And Mum kind of told him, and he said to her, he said you can't change it from the outside. That was the thing he said to me that kind of stuck with me. He said, "I'll tell him, like that's good, but if he quits and goes and does something else, then it just stays how it is, or he can kind of work his way into a position to kind of try and do something different and do things his way." So that's always stuck with me, that one. And I've always tried to kind of, as I said, like move myself in those directions if I can, things that kind of I value.
Oh, nice. Now, the last one would probably be a little bit of an easy one. Could be a hard one, but you mentioned karaoke there before. Who's your favourite band or solo artist to listen to?
That's a tough question. I'm not a massive music guy,
Okay.
and it might be a bit controversial because if you separate the artist from the music.
Okay.
I'm a big Kanye West fan.
Okay.
The musician.
Yeah.
The person is a whole other thing. And
Other story.
Yeah, a whole other story. But if you separate the artist and just the music, I've always loved Kanye's music. That he would be probably, if I was to pick one artist, if I had to listen to his music till the end of time, it would be Kanye West. I think he probably sticks with me the most.
Does he have a karaoke song?
Yeah. Do I have a karaoke song? I was in Vietnam recently on a holiday after the World Cup, and we did karaoke out on Ha Long Bay. And I think the best song was you ever heard Tribute by Tenacious D?
Oh yes.
Yeah, me and my brother did that, and that was that'd be my go-to from now on. I think it's a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Great song. Well, Jake Duke, thank you very much for joining me today on the Para Cave podcast. I really enjoyed it, and keep up the great work on Face to Face. It's must viewing on a Monday night, 7:30. I know I'm always watching it after NRL 360. And keep up your great work on the sidelines as well. And no doubt we'll catch up at a game around the traps soon, and we'll say hi. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast today.
No problem, mate. Thanks for having me. I'll definitely see you at a few games, and hopefully the Eels turn around a little bit for you.
Helen, how you going,
Bruce.
mate? Are you a Paracave podcast listener?
I am, bro. It's a great podcast. Everyone tune in.
Go Para. Well, welcome back, and thanks for listening to Jake Duke and his rugby league story. Some great yarns there, and some great stories, some funny ones as well in there. Thank you very much, Jake, for coming on the podcast, and I hope to catch up soon at a game and say g'day. And also keep up the great work you're doing on Fox League. And listeners, if you get the chance, check out the face-to-face show which is on a Monday night, 7:30 p.m. It's a great interview style show with some really interesting characters involved in rugby league. So you'll find that on Fox League, channel 502. For those that are lucky enough to have it, check it out. As I said, some great interviews there with some really interesting characters involved in rugby league. Now to the sponsors of the Paracave podcast and major sponsor, Jack's Pale Ale. Thank you very much for supporting the podcast. Jack's Pale Ale is available to purchase in the club shop and is perfect for that Eels fan or beer lover. So just drop into the club shop and get some today. But also keep an eye on the social media channels for what's happening at Parramatta Leagues Club each and every week. Exciting new competition starting, so check out the socials about that one. And co-sponsors, Beau Cook from Loan Market. His contact number is 0401 213 236. Get in contact with him for a free chat and see how he and his team can help you get on the top of your home loan and find you that best deal. And also co-sponsor Scott from Brightside Detailing and Ceramics. You can find Scott on Instagram and Facebook. If you want to be driving around in the shiniest and cleanest car in town, contact him today on 0449 544 086 and let him know that you heard it here from myself on the Paracave podcast. The official apparel sponsor of the podcast, BTZD Teamwear. Head to www.btzd.com.au. Check out their range of team sportswear and see what they can do for you. And also let them know that you heard it here on the Paracave podcast. Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty. If you want that quality service from a 5-star real estate agent, then Shannon's your man. You can contact him on 0421 588 445 for real estate sales in the Glenmore Park and the Penrith in Glenmore Park and the Penrith LGA areas. Please support these businesses that support the podcast each week, that help bring you quality entertainment, and share the love on socials as well. Don't forget also to the Parramatta Times, the official media partner of the podcasts. If you want to know what is happening in Parramatta and surrounding areas, simply head to www.parramattatimes.com.au. Now to the Paracave podcast merchandise that is available now for purchase. We have hats. We have Paracave podcast hats that you'll see me do my interviews in and photos in and whatever else on social media. But it comes to you for the reasonable price of only $15 and comes with a new exciting podcast logo. All you need to do is you can send me a DM on social media and we'll see how we can arrange that one, or you can email the podcast on www.theparacavepodcast@yahoo.com. Order one now for $15 plus postage and handling. get in quick, be the first to post it on social media as well. But on top of the hats, we also have some, thanks to BTZD Clothing, we've got exclusive Paracave Podcast polo shirts, which are only $30 each. I've got 3 large and 3 XL shirts left in this first batch, so you can order the same way as the hats via the email address, or even send me a DM on socials and we'll organise it. And even better, if you want to get a hat and a polo shirt, there is a combo deal for only $40, so great value there. So head to the Paracave Podcast social media channels on Instagram and Facebook, and if you want to place an order, just send me a message and we will organise it, and I will get it to you as quick as possible, or send me an email as well. So they look great. I've had some great feedback about the shirts and the hats as well, so get yours today. Now, I just want to ask you, the listeners, and asking for a little bit of feedback as well from you, the listeners. How are you finding this sort of new format? The last couple of weeks I've released a interview on the Thursday. I've also got the chats that I do with the Duckman on his weekend sports rap show, which is on Pulse FM 89.9 FM. So that's a review and a preview of the NRL round, and I've also got the excerpts of my chat with the guys at the Talking Para podcast as well. So how are you liking that content coming your way each week? I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know. Send me some feedback. Any feedback will be most appreciated. Have a great week as best you can. Enjoy your footy, but make sure you follow the podcast on the social media channels for some interesting content and to see who's coming up on the podcast, both on Instagram and Facebook. Some great and interesting guests coming your way over the next few weeks. But to sign off the show, and as I always say, the Paracave Podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Para!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.